Afternoon, everybody. My apologies for the delay in getting started, but here we are. Thank you for joining today's webinar. We were unable to retain ASL or CART services due to scheduling conflicts. If you need to use the closed captioning, you can click the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. We have enabled chat and Q&A for this session. If you don't see the Q&A portion, I believe you can click the More button and it's in there. If you would prefer to raise your hand, that would be helpful. If you wanted to chat, then we can go directly to you that way. So with that, and this is being recorded. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan and Mia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Melissa. Hi, everybody. I'm Mia Navarro. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the acting Chief HR Officer with State Human Resources in the Office of Financial Management. And I'm here with Megan Matthews, the Director of the Office of Equity. We're going to go through a few slides, just giving you some information about Executive Order 2404, and in particular, the equity competency. Equity competencies and guidelines around that, and then we will open it up for questions and feedback. So welcome, happy Friday, everybody, and looking forward to being with you today. I'm sharing, so I'm going to go ahead and advance my own screen, own slides. All right, so just a little bit about the Office of Equity, and Megan, feel free to jump in. The vision is that everyone in Washington has full access to the opportunities, power, and resources they need to flourish and achieve their full potential. And they accomplish this through their mission of facilitating policy and systems change to promote equitable policies, practices, and outcomes. And, Executive Order 2404 is about improving opportunities to access state employment. And the piece we're going to talk about today is an important piece of that. But in state HR, where we handle enterprise-wide policy and whatnot, we are one of the co-authors of this executive order with Office of Equity, and so just really excited to be here today to partner. And um, as I was saying, this executive order was a result of a cross collaboration between OFM State HR, Office of Equity, and the Department of Enterprise Services. And really, the intent is to remove barriers and improve access to our recruitment and hiring processes so that people can compete for jobs that they desire and that they're qualified for. So, to equitably and fairly serve all people in Washington state, we want to make sure that every state employee has awareness of two principles. One, that people, both individually and as communities, face different obstacles to accessing state services. And this is really important, right? Because it's really easy for us to come into spaces as you know, in our personal lives or our professional lives, sort of making the assumption that folks around us have similar experiences that we do, but this is just not the case, right? So we have to take into account that everybody has different experiences in life that we need to take into account when we're designing services. And then the other piece here is how we choose to treat people has the power to make it easier or harder for them to be successful, right? It can also be easy for us to get into grooves in our work of like, how can I make my job easy for myself or easy to execute or efficient and whatnot? And if we're not taking into account other people's experiences, we might be inadvertently making it harder for them to access services. So, as I said, the piece of Executive Order 2404 that we're going to be talking about is about equity-minded competencies. And this is the language from the executive order that effective July 1st, 2025, job announcements for employees in executive branch agencies and position descriptions they're based on must contain at least one required equity-minded qualification. And I'm going to hand it over to Megan to talk about why equity competencies are important.
Thank you, Mia. I really just let me say I appreciated being able to listen to you present because I learned from you. So thank you so much for kicking us off and for the introduction. So Megan Matthews, she, her pronouns. I'm the director of Washington State's Office of Equity that was established in statute in 2020. And I've been a state employee for almost 18 years now. I started in an entry-level position and I've worked my way up with a lot of help over the years. And I provide that background because I want to share that my perspective is that we are all that we are all committed to doing good work and service. We're all committed to service. And to some of Mia's points, sometimes in our goals to achieve our work or find better ways to do our work, it benefits us. But the processes we create are rigid and don't allow us to, or we're not thinking about how to adapt to serve in each individual situation. And so the equity competencies are kind of born from that spirit of how are we making sure that we are attentive to each customer's needs and finding ways to help their needs get met. And really, as we continue to move towards this idea of us being one Washington, not only focused on our agency, but overall outcomes across the state. So equity competencies, that is why this slide is just a summary of what I said as a slide, that we need to be better at serving Washingtonians and each other. I'm sure you may have heard of the stereotypes about state employees and who we are and all the things, right? And from a negative perspective, well, I would say that we're also brilliant and talented and wanting to do good work, right? And so that needs to be reflected in the way that we serve each person who comes in, no matter what we are feeling, right? To serve, most often the most vulnerable people in our state. Um, so understanding these equity competencies are born from this idea that we need to understand our own abilities and limitations of our knowledge. So if you are like me, I love learning. Like I said, it's learn from Mia. And the more I learn, the more I know how little I know. And that encourages me to want to learn more and I want to understand more. But also, I want to work with other perspectives because I don't believe I'll ever know it all. And so, working with other people helps me understand how I can do my work better. And that's really the approach of the Office of Equity. And so, the first one is just understanding our own limitations and working to learn better and do better to serve, and then being creative to find different ways to meet the needs of our of Washingtonians so government can be more effective and efficient. If we're thinking about Governor Ferguson's goals, it's for an efficient and effective government that provides excellent customer service. Next slide, please. So these requirements are that agencies will include 2 equity competencies in their job descriptions and positions, and that you really should work on incorporating those now. These will replace or be in addition to any competencies you already have in your agency. We want to make sure everybody has at least these 2, and then whatever you want to do on top of that is fine, or what you've already worked out in your agency's processes. We are equity and state HR working on the accountability process, but we anticipate the performance tracking period to begin January of 2026. Next slide, please. So the first requirement is the ability to take action to learn and grow. So this is kind of to my point before, where we want to identify people who are curious about themselves and others, recognizing that we don't know it all, right? And there's a humility in that, because it helps us be curious and be willing to learn more, so that we can be better and do better. It'll also help us make improvements in state government processes to make government more efficient and effective. Next slide, please. So some examples of this are considering and incorporating new information and different perspectives, identifying and innovating opportunities and solutions, taking responsibility for learning and adapting rather than relying on others to fill those gaps. And so while we get into the competencies and then and some examples, what we wanted to do was show you, because it's a mindset, just like how you might interview for someone or who's a problem solver or a team player or who is creative, right? There are these things that we are already seeking in our hiring processes broadly across the state. What we do is typically we have here's what we're looking for, and here's some ways that somebody might show that they have that ability, right? And so this is similar. So we wanted to give you some examples of how People may demonstrate these lists are not exhaustive. They're just there to help you kind of navigate this change. Next slide, please. Required competency 2, the ability to take action to meet the needs of others. So as you learn more and you can do better, we want you to use your skills to find ways to meet the needs of our customers, of Washingtonians, right? There's For Washingtonians experiencing working with state government processes, it can be very burdensome, very frustrating, right? Sitting in or waiting for hours on the phone, waiting in line for long periods of time, waiting for us to respond for weeks on end, especially when people are in a crisis, right? Right now, people are losing their jobs, federal employees, state employees, many of our colleagues losing their jobs, right? They're in a state of crisis. So if they show up for services, show up for benefits, right, to meet their needs, they can take care of their families. How are we meeting their needs if they don't qualify for your program? What other programs can we direct them to? What other opportunities are there, right? They want help. How can we make sure that we're showing up in a compassionate way to provide them help? There are a lot of stereotypes about some of our most vulnerable in our population, right? But it's not our job to understand why they're in a situation they are. It's our job to help them in their time of need, just as if we would want somebody to do for us if we were in that place, right? Which some of us really are. And so this is it's an opportunity for us to understand some of the mechanics behind why people are applying for services and really meet the need in a holistic way and in a humanizing way. And so this equity competency is the second one, and that's why that one's there. Next slide, please. So some examples of how someone might demonstrate that they have this ability. Increasing access opportunities and positive outcomes for others. So, sometimes we get those kudos, right? And like, hey, I just want to tell you this person did, they met with me and they treated me great. And I even though I'm in a rough place, I just feel really, really grateful that they helped me today, right? That would be an amazing sort of feedback. Or colleagues saying this person's incredibly helpful. They're always willing to help me navigate these challenging problems in my caseload. Asking questions so we can understand and meet the needs of others. So not assuming that we think we know what's best for our clients, but asking them questions and really understanding their needs and helping them then meet those needs by giving them the information they need to navigate these services. Adapting our communication and approaches to different communities, individuals. This one's really helpful because there are different ways we all communicate, right? We go back to, are you the visual learner, audio learner, and kinesthetic, right? How are we adapting how we communicate to meet the needs of the people who come across to us, to make sure that they are informed about the options that are available to them? Next slide, please. So agency accountability, we talked a little bit about this right now. So we will be making sure to share information with you, but we really want to make sure that you are taking the steps to implement these competencies now. They are live on OFM's website. The guidance documents are live on the website, and we want you to start implementing them in your organization. I would highly encourage you to connect with your agency's equity leader. We have been working with them since the beginning of this year on these equity competencies, and so they will have additional knowledge or guidance to implement these. And then I did share with all your agency heads at exec and small cabinet last month. They're very excited for us to move towards competency-based hiring. And to take intentional steps to moving towards advancing our equity, competency, and ability to serve Washingtonians. So if you have additional questions, I would encourage you to meet with them. We are estimating that the performance period will begin January of 2026, and we will share more information as we have finalized that process. so you all know exactly how to be successful. But we really want to encourage you to do some reflection upon what are the goals and intent, right? We are presenting this. We could just, release the guidance in the Word document, but we're taking time to share with you to hopefully provide a little more information on what the intent and the purpose is. We really want to make sure you have the background knowledge necessary to implement this in a meaningful way. But we also want to tell you that we're here for you. So anytime we do something new, it's scary because we're trying it, right? There's nothing there's no path that's already been laid for us. And that's scary, right? Especially when you think about the hiring process, because we always want to make sure, is it fair? And what I would share is that our processes right now are not fair, right? So they advantage people who have degrees at the disadvantage of people who do not have degrees. And what are all the equity considerations along with that? Um, our processes disproportionately impact certain communities negatively and disproportionately benefit some communities positively. That's the data. There's the data that already shows that in our systems and processes. So the point of this executive order is to move Washington State towards more fairness, more equity, more fair possibilities and opportunities for people. That's the intent, that's the goal. And so we encourage you to begin working collaboratively within your agencies. Um, and then, if your other resources are stuck, to please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to support through that. Next slide, please. So what's next? Consult with your equity leader or leaders, finalize your internal implementation plans, and start updating your job posting templates and PDs, and train your hiring managers. And what we were saying is that these equity competencies are for new or promotional opportunities. They're new hires. So we don't want you to be updating every PD in that is currently held by someone. We are doing this. So we wanted to do this in a way that allows you all to be successful without having to do the thousands of people in your organizations, or the tens or the thousands, right? We don't want you to have to do all of that right now. That wouldn't be fair. And so what we wanted to do is start with the new positions, new hires, promotion opportunities. Those are the PDs and job posting we want you to be updating. Um, and uh, and that's how we want to start doing this. And because we're in a hiring freeze, we know agencies are still doing some hiring, but generally hiring, we're not doing as much hiring right now. And so that should give you the opportunity to do this intentionally, to be able to put some thought into this, and begin implementing this throughout your agency in a way that once we move past this time period and are able to hire more, we'll already be there. We'll all be ready. We'll all be moving. We'll all know how to do this. Next slide, please. So we put the link in the slides, the link to the tool, the guidelines online, and those provide sample questions for cover letters, job postings, interview questions, and reference questions. The point of these guidance and these example questions is to give you the full breadth of kind of samples to you that you can choose from. If you don't, if you don't do it in a cover letter, then don't use it for a cover letter, right? In our office, we have done equity questions in our cover letters. So if you're an agency that does do that, great. If you're not, you don't have to do it, right? We want to make sure that we provide as much opportunity and as much resources for you to be successful. Take what you need, don't use what you don't need. And you have discretion in how you operationalize these questions or the equity competencies, not adapting the actual questions, but how you use how you assess for them in the hiring process. But we really encourage you to do this in collaboration with your equity leaders, because like I said, we've been working with them since the beginning of this year. And we want to make sure that they are sought as experts, the equity experts in your agency, before you all reach out to us. And then State HR will be there for the specific HR questions. But I think between what we have, these presentations, and your equity agency leader, you know, you'll be set pretty well. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Mia, did you have anything you wanted to add to anything? Did I miss anything?
Lost my mute button. I just want to recognize that there are a lot of agencies that are doing really great work in this space. So want to thank you all for leaning into it and figuring it out. And but no shade on those who haven't gotten there yet, right? But just want to call out that that there are agencies that are working on this, and we thank you for that, and we look forward to being able to kind of lift up your stories and highlight your successes, and just sort of really share that story throughout the enterprise as we move forward with this work.
Yeah. And if your agency is already kind of along this, let us know because it would be great for if you wouldn't mind other agencies providing them with kind of other agency mentors on being available to ask questions on how did you do this? How did you navigate this? And was this a challenge? Those types of things so that again, you have more information. You don't have to recreate the wheel where an answer's already been found for something.